I still remember the first time I heard the laughter. That IT wasn't from the Germans, that IT came from our own side. White pilots at the base would chuckle when they looked our way. Colored boys flying fighters? They'd grin. They'll crash before the Luftwaffe even finds them. They thought we didn't hear. But every word cut deep. My name is First Lieutenant David Carter, 332nd Fighter Group. One of the first black fighter pilots to fly for the United States Army Air Forces. It's strange how a man can train to fight Nazis, yet still battle the man standing right beside him. We began in Tuskegee, Alabama, in early 1943. The heat, the dust, the stares from townsfolk who believed this was just an experiment. That's what they called us. An experiment. As if we weren't men, just a theory. Our airfield was isolated on purpose. Some officials hoped we would fail quietly. But we didn't fail. We rose before dawn, trained until dusk, sweated through books of aerodynamics and gunnery tables. We studied enemy silhouette charts until we saw Messerschmitts in our dreams. I remember soloing in a T6 Texan, my hands trembling on the throttle. The moment my wheels left the ground, I wasn't just flying. I was proving the world wrong. When we transferred to Italy in January 1944, the war smelled of burnt oil and Mudati Ramatelli airfield. Our P-51 Mustangs weren't new, but they were ours. We painted the tails bright red. Assigned to our bomber boys. We are here. We will protect you. But to many white commanders, we were still the colored squadron. They sent us on safe missions at first. Low-risk patrols. An bomber escort. They didn't trust us yet. Imagine training your whole life for a moment, and then being told to wait. On July 2, 1943, one of ours, Charles Hall, achieved the first aerial victory by a Tuskegee Airman. Shot down an FW-190 over Sicily. The news spread like wildfire. But even then, the doubters refused to hush. Beginner's luck, they said. Our first major escort mission came in the spring of 1944, B-24 Liberators. Big as barns, slow as sorrow, dragging themselves toward Ploiești, Romania. Hitler's oil. Protecting them meant flying straight into the throat of the Luftwaffe. They warned us. Fight, but never leave the bombers. No chasing glory, no breaking formation. We didn't argue. We knew what it felt like to be left behind. The sky over the Danube turned black with flak. Explosions hammered the air so hard my canopy rattled. You don't think about dying, just keeping the wings level. And then I heard them. Luftwaffe fighters. Focke-Wulfs. With yellow noses, dropping from above. Bombers screamed for help. We tightened formation. Guns armed. I saw a German lining up a B-24. A clean shot. Not on my watch. I rolled, squeezed the trigger. Tracers slicing the air like burning chains. The FW-190 burst into fire and smoke. Flaming pieces of metal spun toward the fields below. My first kill. But I didn't cheer. All I could think was, they're not laughing now. When we returned to base, the bomber crews, white men who once looked through us, ran out to meet us. They shook our hands, clapped our backs. They'd never seen fighters stay so close. Not even for a second abandoning the bombers. One pilot grabbed my arm and said, "Where'd you boys learn to fly like that?" I smiled. "We always knew how," I said. "You're just seeing it now." A single victory didn't erase years of prejudice. But that day, something shifted. Respect began to grow. Not freely given, but earned in blood. And yet, this was just the beginning. Because the Germans had a nickname for us too. Schwarzvogelmenschen. Black birdmen. They mocked us. They believed a black pilot was no match for the Luftwaffe. But soon, they would fear the red tails behind them, more than anything else in the sky. By the summer of 1944, the red tails were no longer a curiosity. We were a problem for the Luftwaffe. Our orders came with new weight now: escort the bombers. Protect them at all costs. We lived by that rule. We'd seen too many broken planes limping home, and too many parachutes that never opened. Every man in our group carried a fear, not of dying, but of failing the men who trusted us to bring them back. In June 1944, we escorted B-17 flying fortresses into the heart of the Reich. Targets: Munich,
Budapest,
Vienna. Industries pumping life into Hitler's war machine. When a B-17 went down, it wasn't just metal falling. 10 lives disappeared in a single plume of fire. Our P-51 Mustangs could outrun most Germans, but we stayed slow with the bombers. Some white squadrons dove after fleeing enemies, chasing personal glory, counting kills. Not us. We had something to prove far greater than a score. We'd protect the men counting on us, even if it meant letting enemies go. On July 18, 1944, over Memmingen, Germany, the Luftwaffe came hunting. 30 of us guarding nearly 130 B-17s, a terrible ratio. The Germans attacked like wolves. I could see their squadron markings as they swooped in. Jagdgeschwader 300, the experts. Our radios erupted with frantic calls. Bandits! 10 o'clock high. More behind. There was no time to think. We hauled our Mustangs into the fight. Tight turns, wings groaning, engines screaming. NFW 190 tried to cut through our formation. I pulled behind him, firing short bursts. His aircraft spewed smoke, then vanished into clouds, but every kill cost time and fuel and attention. Bombers were burning behind us. Black smoke smearing the sky. 14 B-17s lost that day. Over 100 men killed or captured. We brought many home, but not enough. That night, I sat beside my cot, still. In flight gear, hands smelling of oil and sweat and cordite. I kept seeing empty seats in the officers' mess. Hearing empty laughter. We learned a cruel truth that day. Even heroes bleed. Respect didn't come easy, but it came. Bomber crews requested us by name. Give us the red tails. They stick with you. We became a promise painted in bright red. If we are with you, you are coming home. Word spread beyond our allies. German pilots radioed warnings during battles. Watch out! The black ones are here. We had become a new kind of threat, one that challenged their pride, their ideology, their warped view of who deserved to fly. Hitler preached that black men were inferior, but our tracers wrote a different scripture in the sky. Still, prejudice followed us like a shadow. When we returned from missions, sweaty and exhausted, some officers looked away. Some pretended we didn't exist. Once, after landing, I approached a white pilot for a cigarette. He hesitated, then tossed one without meeting my eyes. It was a tiny thing, but it stung more than any bullet. Segregation wasn't always shouted. Sometimes it was whispered or silent. Even excellence could not erase every chain. But we broke links with every mission. On July 2, 1944, exactly a year after Charles Hall's first kill, we made history again. 4 Me, 109 fighters jumped a B-24 near Blechhammer, Poland. We dove in formation for red tails against 4 German aces. It wasn't a dogfight, it was a dance. Violent, spinning, heart-crushing. I remember seeing sunlight flash off canopy glass right before I fired. 2 Germans fell in flames, their pilots never escaping. The other 2 fled. The bomber crew later sent us a message. Red tails, we saw what you did. We'll never forget. I folded that note into my wallet. I still carry it today. By September 1944, our bomber loss rate was the lowest in the entire U.S. Army Air Forces. Other groups averaged 46 bombers lost. We lost 27. Numbers don't lie. History doesn't lie. Courage doesn't lie. The red tails were no experiment. We were a weapon. But pride is a dangerous fuel. It burns too fast. And war was not through testing us. The Luftwaffe had begun unleashing their newest nightmare. The Messerschmitt Me 262 jet. A Predator twice as fast as us. Deadly, untouchable. And command chose us, the Black Squadron, to hunt them. That mission would take us straight into the jaws of Berlin. Everything we had fought for, every prejudice we had shattered, would be decided in a sky of fire, because soon the Germans would see something new in our red tails. Not a color. Not a race. A reckoning. Berlin. Just saying the name made the air feel heavier. By March 1945, the war in Europe was burning to its end, but not before it tried to take us all with it. We had been ordered to escort B-17 bombers to the heart of the Reich itself. Target. The marshalling yards at Berlin, Germany's final artery of supply. The date, March 24, 1945. We didn't know it then, but this mission would become one of the most legendary in the entire 332nd Fighter Group's history. That morning, before takeoff, the sky over Ramitelli Airfield in Italy was a dull gray, heavy with wind. The ground crews moved fast, tightening bolts, fueling the Mustangs, checking the 6.50 caliber M2 Browning machine guns that lined each wing. The smell of gasoline mixed with the metallic tang of anticipation. Our commanding officer, Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., stood before us. He didn't shout. He didn't have to. "Gentlemen," he said, "we are going to Berlin today. Let's make sure history remembers who got there first." He always spoke softly, but when he did, you felt it in your bones. We climbed into our P-51s, engines roaring like wild beasts. The propellers blurred, kicking up dust and pebbles. Each of us carried extra fuel tanks. Because Berlin was over 1,100 miles away, a single mistake meant we'd never make it back. The takeoff roll was long, the world shaking beneath the weight of expectation. One by one. Our red tails lifted into the pale morning light. By the time we reached Austria, the sky had cleared, a cold blue sea stretching forever. The bomber formation appeared below us. Hundreds of silver B-17s, steady and slow, like a migrating flock bound for hell. They called us their little friends. Funny how that sounded less like a nickname and more like a prayer at 12:15 p.m. As we approached Berlin's outskirts, the German defenses woke up. Black puffs of flak burst all around us. Like thunder trapped in the sky, we were flying through a wall of exploding metal. Every second could be your last. Then we saw them, Mi-262 as jets. Fast. Terrifyingly fast. Silver daggers cutting through the sunlight. Their speed made them look like ghosts. You only saw them after they'd already killed someone. I gripped the control stick tighter. My oxygen mask pressed against my face as I dove after one of them. The Mi-262 screamed past a bomber, its 30mm cannons shredding through aluminum. I lined up my shot. But the jet was gone in a blink. I couldn't catch him. None of us could. But we had one advantage they didn't: discipline. The Germans would attack, fire, then climb away. We stayed in formation, protecting the bombers, waiting for the right moment. And then, fate handed it to us. As we approached the city, 3 Mi-262s came in low, trying to attack the bomber tails during their turn. They slowed, just for a moment, and that was all we needed. Lieutenant Roscoe Brown spotted the lead jet and dove like a falcon. He fired a short burst from his .50 calibers. Tracers walked straight into the jet's fuselage. The Mi-262 exploded in a flash of orange and black, falling toward the ruins below. 2 more jets were destroyed that day, all by red-tail pilots. We cheered over the radio, but deep down, none of us felt joy. We were too aware of what we'd survived. When we returned to Ramitelli, the base erupted with noise. Mechanics shouting, pilots embracing. We had done what no one thought possible. Escorted bombers all the way to Berlin and back without losing a single one, not one eye in the history of the air war. That was almost unthinkable. Later that evening, we stood around a campfire outside the barracks. Someone passed around a tin cup of coffee that tasted like engine oil. We didn't care. We were alive. I looked up at the night sky. Even through the smoke and clouds, you could see a faint glow on the northern horizon, Berlin still burning, and I thought about what it meant. The Nazis said we were inferior. America said we weren't ready. But there we were, black pilots who had flown through hell itself and come home untouched. We didn't just protect bombers that day. We protected our name. The newspapers back home never printed our full story. Most people didn't even know we existed. But the men who flew those bombers, they remembered. A few weeks later, one of them wrote to our squadron, "The Red Tails never left us. We owe you our lives." That letter meant more to us than any medal ever could. WWII April 1945. Hitler was trapped in his bunker. Germany was collapsing. But for us, the war wasn't just ending. It was changing. We had fought two wars. One against fascism abroad, and another against racism at home. And when we finally returned to America, many of us would face the same walls we thought we had torn down in the sky. But that day, that flight over Berlin, we didn't think about hate or skin or politics. We thought about the sound of our engines, the rhythm of freedom. And for a few shining hours, we truly owned the sky. People look at the medals. They remember the victories. But they rarely ask about the cost. WWII April 1945. The 332nd Fighter Group had flown more than 15,000 sorties. We had destroyed 112 enemy aircraft in the air, another 150 on the ground, and helped break the Luftwaffe's spine. But numbers don't show the empty bunks or the chairs no one sat in anymore. I remember the first pilot we lost. .2 ND Lieutenant James L. McCullen, shot down during a bomber escort mission to Ploiești, Romania. He had just turned 21. I still see his Mustang trailing smoke, dropping from the formation like a dying bird. We waited for his parachute. We prayed. But the sky stayed silent. The chaplain told us he was in a better place. But we knew the truth. His war ended in fire, far from home. Every time we took off, we walked past aircraft with new names painted beneath their cockpits. In memory of, we tried not to look too long. War changes them, and it changes how you walk, how you breathe, how you sleep. You learn not to get close to anyone, because tomorrow, they might be a memory. There was one pilot I couldn't push away. Lt. Charles A. Train Davis. He was the loudest voice in the room. Laughing, joking, always smiling. He could turn fear into courage with just a sentence. They can't hit what they can't catch. But even he wasn't invincible. One mission over Budapest taught us that the hard way. 109s descended on us from above. Yellow-nosed fighters of Jagerschwader 27, the infamous Desert Eagles. They came fast and precise. A train broke formation to protect a damaged B-24. He attacked 3 fighters at once. He saved the bomber. But his Mustang took a cannon shell to the wing root. I heard his voice on the radio. Shaking, but steady. "Tell my mom I flew true." His plane vanished into the Danube Valley. We never found him. That night, no one laughed. We kept flying anyway. Not because we were fearless, but because we couldn't bear the thought of a bomber crew dying because we weren't there. They learned to trust us. They radioed one message we never forgot. "Red Tails, thank God it's you." In a segregated world, those 5 words meant more than freedom. They meant respect. By late April, Germany was collapsing. Hitler hiding in a bunker. Berlin in ruins. The Luftwaffe was running out of fuel, bullets, and hope. But cornered beasts can still bite. On April 26, 1945, we escorted a bomber group near Linz, Austria. Flak ripped through the sky, black iron flowers blooming beneath us. Then tracers appeared, bright, angry lines of death. A new German jet, the Heinkel He-162 Volksjäger, streaked past. Like lightning. I swerved hard. My G-suit tightened around my legs. My breath turned sharp. The jet fired, missed by inches, then vanished. The danger was still real. The war was not done. When we returned to Ramitelli that evening, an officer approached us with news. Mussolini was dead, hanged by his own people. April 28, 1945, some men celebrated. Others stared into the firelight, wondering how close we were to laying down our wings. We didn't know it, but in less than 2 weeks, the war in Europe would be over. We were exhausted, but determined to finish our duty. Not one bomber would go unprotected. Not one enemy would touch them. Not while we were still alive. Later that night, I walked alone to the edge of the airfield. The sea breeze carried the smell of oil and salt. Our Mustangs sat there in silence, their red tails glowing under the moonlight. That I rested my hand on the cool metal of my plane. That I thought of a train. Of McCullen. Of all the voices that had gone quiet. And I whispered, "We fly for you now. Because in war, courage isn't just pulling the trigger. It's climbing into the cockpit again after watching a friend fall." And the red tails kept climbing into the sky, into danger, into history. But this fight was not over yet. The war was dying, but war never dies quietly. March 24th, 1945. The mission that would define us. We were ordered to escort B-17s deep into the heart of Nazi Germany, to Berlin itself. The black heart of the Reich. It would be our longest, most dangerous mission. Nearly 7 hours in the sky. Fuel would be tight, ammunition tighter. But we didn't hesitate. We knew bomber crews were counting on us. Before takeoff, our commander, Colonel Benjamin O. Davis Jr., walked the line, eyes sharp, voice steady. "Remember, one mission can change how the world sees us." He wasn't just talking about the Luftwaffe. He was talking about America. We crossed into German airspace. Smoke from burning cities rose like dark towers. Berlin's ruins appeared ahead. A dead empire still spitting fire. Then we saw them, 262s German jet fighters. Faster than anything in the sky. Silver blades slicing through the sun. We'd heard what they could do. Slaughter bombers before prop planes could blink. And now they were coming for ours. The jets attacked from above and behind. A blur, a flash, a scream of engines. I kicked my Mustang into a steep climb. Red tail shining bloody in the light. Me-262 flashed in front of me. I fired a split-second burst. Hit, smoke trailed from its engine. Another red tail, Roscoe Brown, dived from behind. Perfect shot. The jet exploded in a white fireball. Point one down. Then Charles Brantley. He cut across the bomber stream, shredded another jet trying to escape. Point two down. A third broke formation, desperate to disengage. Armstead Jr. actually chased it, farther than any of us thought possible, and fired. The Me-262 spiraled into the ground. Point three jets destroyed in one day. A record no other American unit could claim. After the chaos came the count. White heavy checkmark. All bombers under our escort returned. Crossmark. Not one was lost to enemy aircraft. Back at base, a message arrived from the 15th Air Force Command. Red tails, best escort we have ever had. For men who were told since birth they were worth less. That sentence carried more power than any medal ever could. But triumph is never pure. As the weeks passed, empty chairs multiplied in the mess hall. We lost men in flak bursts. In emergency landings gone wrong. In missions that ended in flames behind enemy lines. Our victories were written in the sky, but our losses were buried in foreign earth. Still we flew. May 8th, 1945 V-Day. Germany surrendered. Crowds in New York and London danced in the streets. Church bells rang across nations. Flags rose. People cried. But on our base in Ramitelli, Italy, we just stood and stared at the horizon. No cheering, no celebration. We were thinking of the ones who didn't see this day. Men who fought prejudice so the next generation wouldn't have to. Men who proved that courage knows no color. When I returned home to the United States, I expected something to feel different. A handshake, a welcome, a simple thank you. But the signs on the streets hadn't changed. Whites only. Colored entrance. We had fought for a nation that still couldn't decide if we deserved a seat on the bus. Some days, that hit harder than enemy bullets ever did. Years passed. Some of us became teachers, pilots, leaders. Others faded into quiet lives, haunted by memories of burning skies. But history didn't forget that in 1948, President Harry Truman signed Executive Order 9981. The desegregation of the United States Armed Forces. A direct result of what we proved in the AI.it wasn't just Hitler's vision we destroyed. We cracked the walls of segregation at home. Now I sit here older, slower, watching the sun set like a dying ember. I still hear the engines. I still see the red paint on our tail fins. I still feel the weight of every decision we made up there. We didn't choose that war, but we chose how we would fight it, with skill, with honor, with purpose. And when the history books are dust and the medals tarnish, the sky will still remember the red tails.